this is Michaela from Team Retro, where we like retro games and we like the devices that bring them to us. Now this device here is the Ayn Odin Pro. I've had this device since about summertime, and in the 6 months or so that I have owned this device, I've done a couple of videos on it, as well as a generic Android tutorial video, because setting up this device is very similar to setting up Android devices such as the Retroid Pocket 3, or even the Anbernic RG552, as well as the more recent Anbernic devices that are out there. And so I'm long overdue to complete a final review on this handheld, and so I figure, getting so close to Christmas, and now that these devices are more readily available, now's the time to give my final thoughts on this device. And spoiler alert, it's one of my favorites of this year. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you some of the games that I've been playing on this Odin Pro, and then I'm also going to take viewer requests and play some games that were requested for me to try out and see if they are playable. And then of course we'll end with Commendations and Condemnations. Alright, let's jump in and let's get to work. Alright, let's start by writing our mount into SpecTown. So what we have here is a quad-core 2.8 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 845. This is a very capable processor to emulate a lot of game systems, including PS2. We have an Adreno 630 GPU, and this device is capable of 128 or 256 gigabytes of storage, depending on how much you are willing to spend at time of purchase. We have a 5.98 inch 16:9 1080 display, very gorgeous display, and we're running at Android 10. And depending on if you want the 128 or the 256, the price is going to start at about $287, and then it's going to go up from there. Now, in one of my previous videos, I had given a rundown on the different front ends that you can use with this device, but I ultimately decided on the Daigisho front end just because it looks the best to me, but it also seems to be the most flexible as far as features that it offers. It gives you easy access to your collections, as well as access to your Android apps as well. Okay, let's get into some gameplay here, and we're going to start with SNES. Here I am playing Chrono Trigger, one of my favorite games to play on retro devices, and I've probably carried this save to about 3 or 4 retro devices at this point, and this is a fantastic game to play on the Odin Pro. Now, I have also applied a normal 4x filter, which is balancing out some of the pixels here, and the result of that is a clear, crisp image that looks very good and is very much a joy to play. Moving on to NES emulation, again with that normal 4x filter. You can see that Mega Man 3 is running beautifully, and the filter is making up for any type of pixel distortion. So what we have is a beautiful display of 4x3 content on the Odin Pro. So I'm showcasing Dreamcast performance here because I did finally spring for the Pro version of Redream, which allowed me to upgrade the aspect ratio. And so what we're actually looking at here is an upscaled image at 1080p, which looks absolutely beautiful on this screen. And we're not sacrificing performance in Dreamcast emulation. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is running great here. Nintendo DS with the Drastic emulator still remains one of the best ways to play Nintendo DS games out there, and it does kind of boggle my mind that an Android device such as the Odin Pro can play DS games no problem due to the optimizations made with the Drastic standalone, but Windows-based devices like the Win600 actually struggle. But here on the Odin, we are running at a 2x resolution, and the picture quality is great, and the emulation is great. So if you want to get your DS on, this is the system to do it on, and you'll also get full touchscreen support as well. The beauty of PlayStation 1 emulation on Android is you can use the DuckStation standalone emulator, which means that you can bump up the resolution to a 5x 1080p resolution, and these games are going to just look crisp and gorgeous. Now, 3DS emulation on this system is a bit of a mixed bag. I did have to kick up the Odin to high performance mode, and once I did, I was able to get the majority of games running decent at a 2x resolution. However, some of the harder to emulate games like Kirby Planet Robobot just did not work that well even with these optimizations. However, something like Metroid Samus Returns, which is a little bit more easy to emulate, is actually a good fit for this system, and you get full touchscreen control as well, so you can navigate that bottom touchscreen as necessary, and you can switch weapons on the fly and all that, and this will work really well on games that do require the touchscreen for certain interfaces. And even though this is a powerful system for 3DS emulation, it's only my second most powerful 3DS emulator out there, the first being an actual 3DS. Unfortunately, the 3DS is still the best way to experience 3DS games in my opinion. But don't get me wrong, if you don't want to pay the exorbitant prices that 3DSs are going for used on the market today, then this is a very decent plan B. Just keep in mind your success is going to be a bit of a mixed bag even if you are using optimized emulators like Citra MMJ. Moving on to the obligatory God of War test for PSP, here we are running God of War Ghost of Sparta, and we're actually running it at a 3x resolution, and we're still getting 60 frames per second. It did dip a little bit in a couple of instances where there were a ton of enemies on screen, but for the most part, this is very playable, which holds a testament to how well the PSP library is going to play on this device because this is one of the hardest games to emulate. And here's God of War 2 running in Ether SX2, and I had to kick the Odin up to high performance mode in order to get this perfect level of emulation. And even then, perfect isn't the right choice of words because it's not perfect by any means. There are still frame rate dips. However, this is the first device that I've actually been able to play God of War 2 in a playable state, and that is definitely saying something. Moving on to community requests, games that you guys from the community wanted to see me play on this device. We're going to start with a request from Dalton from the Steam Machine podcast, and he wanted to see a Final Fantasy game in action, so I decided to go with Final Fantasy X just to push this device to its limits and see if we can run a PS2 version on this device, and sure enough, this game is pretty playable on this device using Ether SX2. And a quick shout out to Dalton and the Steam Machine community for letting Team Retro be a part of the Steam Machine umbrella, but also Dalton provides the music for this channel. So definitely go check those guys out. By request of Colm Nelligan, a YouTube subscriber, he wanted to see Rugby '08, and it did seem like it was going to be playable on Ether SX2, but then some weird graphical things kept happening, and then the game crashed. So I thought maybe that was a fluke, and I went back in, and it crashed again. So unfortunately, I can't at this time say Rugby '08 is playable right now. However, Colm's second suggestion, WWE SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, did seem to be playable. There was some slowdown during cutscenes, but once we got into actual gameplay, everything seemed to work fine. I've just never really played a wrestling game before, so I naturally got destroyed instantly. Brian414 from the Steam Machine community requested the Outer Worlds, and the only way I was really able to get this running on the Odin was through Xbox Game Pass streaming. So the device itself isn't doing the heavy lifting here. However, the game is perfectly playable on the cloud with that Wi-Fi 6 chip. Both Willie and Jeff from the Steam Machine community requested Hades. Unfortunately, it looks like Hades was taken off of Game Pass, so the only way I was able to get it running on the Odin was through local streaming of my Steam library, and I did this via Moonlight. So this is actually my computer playing the game. However, I'm able to locally stream it to the Odin, and as long as I'm home, I could play Hades on this device.
This can unlock something back home. Witches. Heads up.
Now, Nintendo Switch emulation on Android is still very much in the experimental phase, but late last week I was able to join the Skyline Discord, and I did become a patron, which enabled me to get the latest Skyline Edge build, and this one is a lot more optimized, and it can actually play games that I did not expect to be playable, such as Pokemon Sword. However, in this state, I probably would not play this game from start to finish on this device. I would stick to the regular Nintendo Switch version, because there are a lot of graphical issues, and even then performance still dips quite a bit. So even though it works, it's not the best. There are moments where the cutscenes or certain camera angles are very blurry, and there was even one point where I couldn't see where I was going, and I had to kind of stumble my way through until I got to the next section of the game. And there's also really weird light flashes at points that were very disruptive. Still, the fact that this game is in some form of a playable state at all is a testament to the power of this system and the passion of the Skyline developers. The same thing holds true for the Switch version of Persona 5 Royal. I did have one small incident where it crashed, and when I did boot into the game again, there were some severe graphical issues, as well as some of the dialogue was unreadable. However, the game was pretty decently playable, and I didn't get that crash again, but notice you can't see Joker's face, and some of the text is blanked out. And then also, once I got into this room in the tutorial, I couldn't see a thing. So, while these games might not be completely playable yet, I have every confidence that 6 months from now, we could be having a very different conversation about Switch emulation. In the meantime, however, I do recommend you check out Persona 5 Royal on Xbox Game Pass. You can use cloud streaming to play this game very well with the Wi-Fi 6 chip. And I'm not going to completely poo-poo on this emulator, because there are games that are completely playable on it. The biggest milestone being that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge is now playable on this device, and this makes the Odin an absolute win for me, because if I can play all the Turtles games on it, I am a very happy camper. Alright, we've done quite a bit of gameplay testing, so let's get into Commendations and Condemnations. So let's start with Commendations first. This SD845 chip is really good. As you can see, it pushes some of the limits of emulation, and even though I didn't test it in this video, you can probably get some very decent Android gaming in as well. And because we're running Android 10, we get some of the best standalone emulators, which means we can really optimize some of our gameplay here. And for some of those harder to emulate systems, we do have an optional performance mode built right into Android. This is one of the most comfortable handhelds that I have. I would only say that only the Logitech Cloud is more comfortable than this device. And you can tell that this was built with a very high build quality, especially considering the price. You're looking at almost $300, and you're getting a very well made device that is capable of quite a lot. And if you're interested in streaming, you've got that Wi-Fi 6, and if you wanted to use this as a console, you could because of the HDMI out and the Bluetooth to be able to hook up external controllers. And you'll notice that red right side of the screen is looking pretty slim, and that's because I really don't have much to say about this device that's bad. But if I were to really nitpick, I would probably start with the positioning of the start and select buttons on the right. Due to my experience with the Nintendo Switch as well as other handhelds, I'm used to them being on the top next to the screen, and so I found myself accidentally hitting the home button when I meant to press start. And for shooters, the thumbsticks are probably a little too small for pretty much anyone's liking. As you could see when I was playing Outer Worlds earlier, I couldn't really get a handle on how to use the joysticks to effectively shoot in that game. And it's a very big nitpick. Actually, it's a very small nitpick. But the ABXY button layout is Nintendo based and not Xbox based, and that can get confusing when I'm on Game Pass or playing a newer game. Fortunately, there are ways that I could address that, and that's coming up in a future video. But for now, I'm going to end on one more point, and that was that I liked this device so much that I recommended it to a friend of mine, and he immediately went out and bought one, and I set it up for him, and he has been playing it non-stop ever since he laid hands on this device. So even for somebody who is not tech savvy or who isn't into retro gaming handhelds, this is a good potential starter device for a lot of people, or this could be the one and done device. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this the device to beat? Do you own one? And what are you playing on it? But that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to continue the conversation in the Steam Machine Discord. That's where I'm usually hanging out these days, and the link will be in the video description. And as always, if this video was helpful to you in any way, please be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, bye for now, and don't stop believing.